In 2024, I had my best year financially running a video production business. Now, I know a lot of us in the industry, we sort of struggle with what we call ourselves. For me, am I a freelancer, or do I want to go down the route of being a production company? Or maybe I'm something in between, I don't know. In this video, I want to reverse engineer what things look like for me in 2024 and what that means moving forward into 2025 and beyond. Now, full disclosure, I will talk numbers, but I won't get into like specific numbers, like how much I made. I wish I could go down that route because I find a lot of value in, those that do share their numbers. But after thinking about it, I just don't think that that's wise for me. I live in a small town. Sometimes it's best if you keep that information to yourself. Maybe if I lived somewhere else, like in a bigger city, where I was a little more anonymous, I would do that. But for now, I'm not going to get into like specifically what I made last year. But with that said, I will share enough that I think you will find this video beneficial. So let's get into it. So looking back on 2024, I had my best year since I've been in the video production industry, which has only been about 5 years now. I will say this, in terms of revenue, I didn't quite bring in 6 figures. I was close. It was more like high 5 figures. And I knew about 2/3 of the way through the year that last year was going to indeed be my best year financially. But let me tell you, I'll be fully transparent. The year started out really rough for me. In the first quarter of the year, I made exactly, are you ready for this? I made exactly $0 in the first 3 months of the year. So in actuality, the revenue that I generated in all of 2024 was made in just 9 months. I had no jobs in January, February, or March. And even into April, I didn't land my first job of the year until the middle of the month. Maybe you're surprised to hear that, or maybe not. But that's why I kind of wanted to do this video. I want to take a step back, zoom out, survey the landscape, and look at the year that I had, and reverse engineer to how I got to where I am today. And part of that is looking at my clients. How did I get in touch with them? Because at one point they were strangers to me and I was a stranger to them. So how did I end up on their radar? I can look back now after working with them and see the steps that led me to that point. I did this thing, which led to this, which led to this, and then ultimately ended with me, working with this particular individual or business. So in reverse engineering some of my projects, I've observed a few things. The first one of them being was I found success without having any retainer clients, which to me is just kind of like mind-blowing. I always thought if I was going to survive and make it in the video industry, I needed to have a couple retainers. And I think maybe that's because, I'm from Montana, where the jobs can be more sparse, but there's always people doing interesting things and that could use video work year round. And I live in a small town in Montana too, so that was kind of my thinking. I thought the only way that I was gonna survive is if I had at least a couple retainer clients. And for the first couple of years of me doing video production, I worked with a friend, and it was through his company. We had 3 retainer clients, and that's all we pretty much did was work for these 3 clients. But to make a long story short, those retainers ended. Not because of anything wrong on our part or anything bad happened. That's just how it goes. One of the retainers we had was for a grant through the local tribal college. And if you know anything about grants, you know that they end at some point. So all those things kind of happened at once. And I decided to kind of focus on my own business at that time. This was in late 2022, and it was basically like starting over. And from that point on with my business, I haven't had a retainer client, even though I've been intently seeking them out. 2023 was kind of an up and down year for me. If I remember correctly, I think 2022 was actually a better year for me. So in my short video production career, it's kind of been up and down every year. That's why despite 2024 being my best year, I'm not sitting here like, oh, it's only gonna get better from here. I realize that I have a lot of work to do if I wanna surpass my 2024 numbers. But I am kind of amazed that it's been without the safety of any retainer clients. Most of my clients have been repeat clients, which is great. But those don't offer the consistency that retainers do. A retainer client would have helped me tremendously during the slow period I experienced in the first quarter of the year. So again, I'm kind of amazed that I had the year I did without a retainer. And so next I want to look at some of the clients that I did work with in the past year. But before I do that, I want to share a few quick numbers. All right, so in 2024, I worked with 14 different clients, and of those 14 clients, 4 of them I worked with on multiple occasions throughout the year. Like I mentioned earlier, my worst quarter of the year, I brought in $0 in revenue, while the best quarter I generated $53,335.36. And obviously that was from my big project with the state. My expenses for the year were $15,906. I traveled 7,692 miles. And that doesn't include the times where I flew. This was all when I had to drive in my truck. That's kind of a lot of miles. And I don't mind sharing how much I charge because I'm upfront with that with my clients or potential clients. And so I think that provides context here for everything I did last year. For production, I generally charge $1,000 a day. For editing, it's $500 a day. And then for any travel days, that would be 50% of my day rate, which would be $500 a day. So for example, for like the job that I did in Wyoming, I had 2 travel days that kind of bookended the one production day. So I charged $500 travel, $1,000 production, and another $500 for the travel day back because it was like an 8 or 9 hour drive. And then I also charged mileage for my pickup, per diem, and then also my lodging. And that's kind of what a typical project would look like, especially one where I have to travel. If it's local in the area, obviously I'm not charging the travel fee. All right, so now let's look at some of the clients I worked with during 2024 and see how those relationships developed. My biggest client in 2024 was the Montana Department of Agriculture. This is the project where I went to the 11 different farms throughout the state and produced the 11 different videos, one for each farm. This is where I started doing my vlogging with the very first travel day there. I started my vlog. I ended up with 5 of them. If you're interested to see what those projects looked like, go check out my vlogs. This was by far the biggest project that I've worked on. And I'm talking in terms of scope, the deliverables, price, everything. This project alone accounted for about 40% of my yearly revenue, which is great. Now, how did I land this job? Well, back in 2021, I made a documentary on the buffalo that we have here on my reservation. We have some buffalo that we received from Yellowstone National Park back in 2012, but it was kind of a controversial thing. So I kind of retold that story of how the buffalo got to Fort Peck. It's not a great documentary. It was like 4 years since I made it. So I look back and I'm like, I've really improved a lot since then. I don't even like watching it. But they did show the film at a local food sovereignty conference that they had here at our tribal college. And one of the people that was in attendance worked at a local development corporation. And she came up to me after the screening and asked if I did other types of video work, you know, like working with businesses and stuff like that. Of course, I told her that I did. And then a few months later, she contacted me about working on a project for some local farms that she works with. And so we were able to do that. We made 4 business highlight videos for these local farms. And by local, I mean in eastern Montana. And this was in like 2022. And the project turned out great. And so fast forward to 2023, the girl that I worked with on these projects, she ends up taking another job with the state, clear across the state. But she's kind of working in the same industry, working with the Food and Ag Development Center in Montana. And she kind of wanted to take that same project that we did a couple of years ago and do it on a bigger scale, do it throughout the whole of Montana. And so she contacted me in 2023, said that she wanted to do this project, but it needed to go out to bid, obviously, because it's a bigger state project and they have a procurement process that they need to go through. So I had to put in a bid for the project. I ended up winning the bid, and this was in like around the holidays in 2023. And like right before Christmas time, I found out that I had won the bid and that I had this job, you know, basically waiting for me in 2024, which really helped out during that slow period I had, you know, the first 3 months of the year. It makes it a little more bearable when you know you have a big job waiting for you later on in the year. Now, I would have liked to still have had work then, but it made it a little easier knowing that I had this big project waiting for me. So yeah, that's more or less of how I landed that job. And it was just through my network. You know, I met someone at a conference where they screened a film that I made, and I ended up working on a project with them. And then when she took a job somewhere else and was looking to do a similar project, she kept me in mind, and it ended up working out in my favor. And that really just speaks to the importance of having a network, knowing people, and once you do start working with people, being, you know, good at what you do, being easy to get along with, you know, that stuff goes a long way. And, you know, if they move on to different jobs or go elsewhere or want to do a bigger project, they're going to keep you in mind. And so it really speaks to the importance of, you know, putting yourself out there and just expanding your network. All right, so another client that I've worked with in 2024 was for a housing nonprofit. I think it was in vlog, I think it might be 13, I think, where I did work for this particular housing nonprofit down in Wyoming. And how I got in contact with this client was I have a friend that lives over on the Fort Belknap Reservation, which is like about 3 hours west of where I live. And he has a church camp that he hosts for the youth every summer. And I was visiting with him one day and was kind of telling him about the work that I do, that I have my own business. And he asked if I could put together a little video for him, you know, just some pictures and put it to music. It was basically kind of like a slideshow. And I told him, yeah, I can do that, definitely. And then he says, okay, so my daughter's gonna send you the pictures, because she has all of them. She's more techie than I am. She can email them. So his daughter sends me all the pictures, and I put together this quick little video for him. It's really simple. And through my correspondences with his daughter, she's like, hey, I work for a nonprofit and we're looking to hire videographers and photographers, native ones in Indian country, because we're doing a lot of work with tribal communities. And she asked me if I was interested in possibly working with them on some projects. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And she's like, all right, go ahead, send me over your reel or some of your work. And so I do just that. I send her over my reel. I send her over some stills from some interviews that I had done recently. And then I don't hear back from her for like 4 months, I think. I thought maybe my stuff wasn't good enough for them or something, but it was just like, you know, sometimes people are busy and things take time to develop. But yeah, they looked at my stuff. They thought I would be a good fit. And I ended up working with them on various projects in the past, you know, like year and a half. I've worked with them in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Missoula, Montana, and then down on the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. And so looking back, me doing this quick little free video for a friend turned into me working with a repeat client. And not only that, but I built a good relationship with the production company. I converse with the owner, Dan, on occasion. We'll check in with one another from time to time and you know, because the nonprofit that I work for, they already had a production company that they work with. They were just looking to bring on like freelance video people to work alongside this production company on the ones where they work in these tribal communities. And that's kind of how I got involved. And, you know, sometimes opportunities can arise where you least expect them. And that kind of leads me to, you know, the overall point, I guess, that I'm trying to make with this video, or what I want to highlight, which is a majority of the clients that I work with have come from, you know, not so much me reaching out to them or cold calling them, asking if I could do work for them, maybe free work in hopes that it turns into paid work. More so my clients have come from me making myself visible to others. You know, whether that is, sometimes it's through free work or doing stuff for friends because they know people. Now that's not to say I haven't tried the cold calling approach. Well, I actually haven't really cold called strangers and asked if I could do work for them. That's not really in my personality to do something like that. I feel like when you're in the service industry, and people may disagree with this, I don't necessarily like starting off relationships in that way where I'm approaching them. I always feel like the relationships always end up being more fruitful when they're the ones coming to you for your service. What I've tried before is I've reached out to businesses or organizations where I knew someone, or, you know, I had maybe a mutual friend or someone that was like a go-between where I could ask them and be like, hey, I know this organization is putting on this event. Do you think they'd mind if I came and filmed it and put together like a recap video for them? Or I'll ask them myself. And most of the times they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And in my mind, I always thought, like, if I do a good job at this, maybe they'll consider hiring me in the future to do more videos. But more often than not, what happens is that particular organization probably isn't looking for video content, because if they were, they would already have hired someone for that event. But that doesn't mean that there isn't someone at the event that isn't looking for video work. My approach lately has been, you know, I'll approach these businesses and ask to do a video for them, but I'm not doing it with the expectation that they're gonna come back and ask me for more work. I'm doing it more like, you know, it's kind of as a form of advertising. You know, I'm at this event, I have my camera, I'm in front of a lot of people. There's probably someone there that does need video. And if they are, they're probably inclined to come talk to you like, hey, you do video, I need video for this. And then I'm able to give them my card. And sometimes I feel like I've had more success in that regard when I'm working at a place and people see me working. I've had instances where I did a event in I think it was 2022. I met a lady there. I gave her my card, and then I didn't hear from her or see her again until like a couple years later. And now potentially I might be working on a project in 2025 for them. So sometimes it takes months or even years for something to develop, but she wouldn't have known about me otherwise if I wasn't there filming at that event. And I did it for free. I didn't get paid. But, you know, sometimes you got to do things to where you're putting yourself in front of a lot of people. And so that's just what I've noticed, at least from my own experiences, is that when you do free work for people or businesses or organizations, that doesn't really lead to more work with that organization. For me, it leads to work with other people that might be at the event. So if you're looking to build up a client list, maybe consider doing something like that, doing free work for, you know, an organization that's putting on this event that will get you in front of a lot of eyeballs. You know, maybe find an organization that's putting on an event, approach them about doing a recap video or something for them, and do it without the expectation that they're gonna come back and ask, you know, to hire you again for other projects. Who knows, maybe they will, and that's great. But I do it as a form of like free advertising. You know, there's no better advertisement than you walking around with your camera at a large event, actually working. And I've had a little bit of success doing that, and you know, I would probably encourage others to do the same. So looking ahead to 2025, what am I looking to do differently, or what adjustments am I going to make? Well, for starters, I don't have a huge project waiting for me later this year like I did last year. But this year isn't starting off as slow for me either as it did last year, so that's great. I have a few smaller projects that I know I'm going to be involved in later this year, and so that helps, knowing that I have this work waiting for me. And I know there'll be projects that pop up throughout the year, just as they have in years past. And one thing I've learned running my own business is that I have to think differently about money. Because as it stands now, us being in the video production industry, if we don't work, we don't get paid. Which, when you're in the service industry in general, that's how it should be. But what if something happens to where, what if I get sick or something, or something else happens to where I'm unable to work for a few weeks or a few months or an extended period of time? What do I do then? That's something I realized last year, that although I did well financially, it was a lot of work. And if I want to have an even better year this year, I need to do either one of two things. I either need to work more, or I need to raise my prices, or a combination of both. But realistically, if I did raise my prices, I could only do so much. And that's one thing about being in the service industry, is like, if you really want to make money, you have to constantly be finding work, constantly be working. And this whole thing has got me thinking that I need to do something outside of the video production industry and the service industry in general to supplement that income, sort of as a safety net. That way I don't have to worry as much, for like when I have slow periods or even down years. I need to up my number of revenue streams outside of video production. Not because I'm looking to get out of the industry, but because that's the smart thing to do. Now, what that looks like, I'm not entirely sure yet. I have a few different ideas, and it's something I've thought about for a while. That's why a healthy percentage of the money I made last year, I invested into other things. And I'm interested in so many things outside of video production, other businesses or side gigs that I could start, just because I have so many interests elsewhere. And like I said, who knows what that's going to look like, but I do know that I need to create some more revenue streams if I want to be smart. I need to provide for my family, I need to protect them, so I have to start thinking bigger. And so that's where I'm at as far as my mindset about my business, and serves as kind of a snapshot in terms of where I'm at in my career. If I branch off and do these other things, I'll probably document those as well. And I hope you stick around to see how 2025 shapes up for me. I know I kind of rambled a lot in this video. If there's any questions or anything that you have, anything you want to know on my end, let me know in the comments, and I would definitely be more than willing to answer them for you. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.